painting a second level and the third level. So here's another area here, and which I thought was really, really cool. I know me myself, I was just like, that just looks a little scary, but you know, it was accomplished nonetheless. So other neighbors, neighborhood kids as well, they just happened to just ride their bikes and they saw this and they admired the design. And what was also interesting is that there's a nonprofit organization actually called Sit On It Detroit, and these individuals are actually, this particular young man here used reclaimed or old wood from demolished buildings to create benches. And they put benches around the city of Detroit, and they also donated one to MackAlive. So this is them again, sitting on the bench taking a break through the process, which I think is really cool, by the way, because, you know, if you think about it, there's a lot of great wood from a lot of these old homes, and it's still salvageable, if I'm saying that correctly. My tongue is twisted, so. And look at what we've accomplished. Again, we are one. And this is another view from Mack Avenue. And how did you want to talk about this particular issue?
Well, this was, at the very end, we had a harvest art show and opportunity to go out and pick stuff from the garden. And you see here the young man in the middle here is holding one of the photographs that was enlarged, and that's our state representative next to me there, and our Laura, who couldn't come next to her. We had them fill out evaluations, just little ones, and they all said that they had made new friends, had fun, learned something new, and were creative. So, kind of thinking about, well, how does this fit into the conference theme, expanding the lens? This was a new setting for the seeds of an art therapy program. The conference brochure talked about healing, health, and wellness being promoted, and you know, I think to some extent those were, I think about how the earth was healed. It was so hard, and then we got it, I mean, even from just that standpoint, the ground was healed a little bit. Participants were able to learn aspects about gardening, visual art, and photography. They collaborated with others on community projects, but they also did some of their own art. So there was kind of a nice back and forth, my own art, and being able to see who am I in my community, how can I contribute to the larger community. They saw and tasted the fruits of their labor. And then Val was telling us that she knows the family histories of some of the kids who she said when they go home it's not structured, so to have structure here and focus, she thought that was good for some, you know, a couple of particular kids. And she said she has observed children just out on the lawn playing, riding their bike, saying, and somebody will say, "What's that?" And I'll say, "I worked on that. You know, I had a part in that." So they're proud of it. And then this past spring, we had another program, and we had 2 parents show up for the first meeting. Not that it was because of this other thing, but you know, I think having the mural, it's so very visible that maybe it was because of that.
Absolutely. Parental involvement in anything is actually, or any type of project or program where their kids are involved and they're feeling empowered, that shows that they're paying attention, that they're, you know, they're engaged. You know, that's very important. And so we're talking about relational aesthetics. Kathy Moon, she basically, this is one of her quotes: "Quality of experience of making art with others, the rich and complex aspects of beauty found in relationships between people, the art process, art product, and surrounding environment." I thought that was really interesting because I've actually been part of the Heidelberg Project, which is also another well-known community art project established by artist Tyree Guyton, where I also volunteered for several years. I'm actually practically family there. I love the Heidelberg Project. So I thought the relational aesthetics related to the artist Tyree Guyton's underlying philosophy of the Heidelberg Project, which is located in an impoverished area in the east side of Detroit. From my previous research in art and social studies, I found that the Heidelberg Project was very similar to art therapy. So I wrote, this is just actually a previous project I worked on, and I wrote, spurring the notion of symbolism in this art project, the discarded materials represented the forgotten people of the community. The polka dots represented the diverse races of people. Initially, the idea was to bring attention to the blighted areas and to breathe life into the community through art. Through the trials he suffered growing up, he dealt with a lot of violence in his early life. He decided to pick up a paintbrush instead of a weapon to find a solution. This notion inspired him to help children in the community to do the same. Art is used as a tool to help inspire children and adults to see beyond themselves and make connections with others and their environment. Similar to the missions of MackAlive, the Heidelberg Project is determined to ensure and rebuild the structure and fabric of under-resourced communities and create a way of living that is economically viable, enriches lives, and welcomes all people. So, another quote from Elaine Shapiro in regards to eco-psychology is, to live in a relational way requires a gradual opening to broader and more permeable boundaries. The boundaries needed to be clear enough that we can hold our own as creative, responsible partners, yet pliable enough that we can bond and identify not only with our immediate family and ethnic heritage, but also with the whole spectrum of beings around us. I thought that was a really powerful quote personally. So, okay. Did you want to talk about the arts? The days of being black.
I think you need to do that. Resistance.
Okay. Yeah, sure, okay. And actually, we are continuing with with MackAlive as well this year, and the project is called Days of Me, and it's also where it's promoting older adults intermingling with young people. And I'm quoting Grace Lee Boggs again, and basically her theory on education and how it involves how children should be involved in real problem solving, especially in our own neighborhoods and communities. She says, we should go beyond the stringent factory model. This is why I said 4 decades ago that our schools must be transformed to provide children with ongoing opportunities to exercise their resourcefulness to solve the real problems of their communities, with younger children emulating older ones and older children teaching younger ones. They can learn to work together rather than competitively and experience the intrinsic consequences of their own actions. Children will be motivated to learn because their hearts, their hands, and their heads are engaged in improving their daily lives. So again, we are significantly growing, where we ultimately had 12 organizations, interns, and volunteers and neighbors contribute to our live. And as you can see here, the list is probably still growing because we're beginning to become popular as we go along. And I believe this will be my last quote of Grace Lee Boggs, 100 years old as of this year. Just imagine how safe and lively our streets would be as a natural and normal part of our curriculum from K through 12. School children were taking responsibility for maintaining neighborhood streets, planting community gardens, recycling waste, rehabbing houses, creating healthier school lunches, visiting and doing errands for the elderly, organizing neighborhood festivals and painting public murals, Our children will be absorbing naturally and normally the values of social responsibility and cooperation at the same time that they are being inspired to learn the skills that acquire the information necessary to solve real problems. And again, I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but again, that all speaks to how we are creating a solution through art, through gardening, and so many different other facets as well.
So this past year, just have a couple of slides about that. We did something similar. We didn't get as much of a funding as the previous years, so we were kind of just doing this all volunteer. We did get enough money for the art supplies. But now that they knew us, we thought, well, maybe we'll start with something more traditionally art therapy. And so that actually didn't, it wasn't as I envisioned either, because again, we had different kids coming every week. But we learned to do this Yalom technique, maybe, where you think of every coming together as maybe a one and only time happening, and kind of introduce what you're doing and see who's there and what they need and things like that. But with the first couple of groups, we had people do things that they were interested in, made mandalas and did collages about themselves, and then what you see here on the table below, they were painting these little mini birdhouses, which we did put in the garden. So they did some art, everything but a mural this past season. Janine and Brienne, I don't know if she's still here. This was inspired by another one of our students. Giant hula hoop, where to kind of transition the kids from their school to coming in, they sat around this hula hoop, made sort of a dream catcher where they tossed yarn to someone else and said something about their day, just to kind of transition into the art and gardening part of it.
Yep, absolutely. Because and actually, this turned out to be an absolute excellent activity for the kids, because I tried to ask them anything positive you want to share with the group. Is there anything that you want to say that happened to you that you want to share? And one of the kids said, actually, you know what? I found my socks. I thought that was really funny. But again, it's a start. It gets them to talk.
And we can relate to that.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the finished piece here. The dream catcher, and we also worked on a collage as well, and it just has different images of our experiences there at MackAlive and planting the gardens as well. And so again, the garden was enhanced. There's a cute little birdhouse above that plant there. I thought that was really, really cool. And quoting Sarah Slayton in regards to social action, in art therapy, the act of construction may symbolize the building or rebuilding personal goals. Focused art therapy processes have the effect of decreasing behavior problems because physical and mental energy is channeled into art making. That is so important. And that's very, very true as well. We must establish safety for individuals, especially those with complex trauma histories, and we should focus on integration and mastery of the body and mind, allowing individuals the feeling of being in charge, calm, and able to engage in focused efforts to accomplish goals. The main thing is just getting them to focus, getting them to calm themselves, but us as our therapists are there as a guide, guiding them through their journey, through accomplishing personal goals, as well as any other emotional issues they're going through as well. And lastly, what I thought was interesting is the systems approach to art therapy is appropriate for the times and is socially responsive. Planting seeds, seed by seed, row by row, and garden by garden is an apt metaphor for how thriving community begins. I see social action, art, and therapy as a system, and every individual's potential for creativity is a sustaining force of the system.
This is our last slide. I was inspired by the Levine and Levine book, Art as Action, and I'd had it for a while. It's I think it published in 2011. But a lot of it I read and I'm just trying to understand what it means. But I was getting a grasp on the term poesis, if I'm saying that correctly.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Oh, maybe you can add. The idea that we made this world together, so the good news is we can make it differently. That I thought was a message that seemed to describe our process. We're just kind of looking at, are there changes we want to make? So our therapists have been invited to participate in more of the programs of MackAlive. For example, they have some relationship with some homeless shelters, and another one of our students is going to go there with MackAlive personnel to offer some art therapy to the women and children. And so hopefully we can continue to support the MackAlive constituents in their efforts to grow and develop and in their mission. And likewise, hopefully we can continue to learn about ourselves and our work from our partnership at MackAlive. This is Alberta Tinsley Talabi outside a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to say if we had some references. I'm happy to email you our references. If you email me, hbean@wayne.edu. So we are ending plenty early. It's only about maybe a couple minutes after 11. Thank you for your attention. Are there any comments or questions? Jordan?
This would be a bit of a loaded question.
Uh-oh.
So I
Okay, not Jordan.
I love this project,
Thank you.
I have to say. And in terms of social action, there's different movements of social action. There's big demonstrations and marches and sit-ins, and there's citizenship schools throughout civil rights and social action. And I see this fitting perfectly in that model. What it makes me think about, though, is what is art therapy in this model? Those of you who know me know that I have a very broad definition of art therapy, and that we can work across the health spectrum that includes wellness, prevention, community building, as well as therapy and rehabilitation. And I heard you say, the times where you talked about art therapy, and even quoting Slayton, really seems to fall more on the therapy side. You talk about the personal goals, the individual transformation, personal expression. But I'm curious to know if you see the other part as art therapy as well, the community building, the groups coming together, the relationship formation, the more sort of civic responsibility aspects that you talked about through the gardening. And if you do see that as art therapy, what can we do to help us expand our definition of art therapy? Because this is a beautiful place for art therapists to be working.
I know.
It's not a mental health licensed place necessarily, but it's still meeting all the goals. It's self-awareness, it's fostering relationships. And yet, it's not something we see regularly introduced as part of the definition of art therapy or the way we see art therapists practicing. So I'm curious to know if you thought about that for yourselves, where you see this as expanding, not really expanding, even though I love the puppets this morning, the choice of founders was really still on that therapy rehab side, except for George S.C. I'm curious to know where you see this as, how do you say this is also art therapy? And why should an art therapist be doing this as opposed to something else? Why can't just somebody with an art degree or an interest in the arts do that community work? Why does an art therapist have to do this work? Where do we fit into this?
Thank you, Jordan. Yes, I have been thinking about that. Constantly, this entire project, I've been thinking about that. Wearing my art therapy program director hat, my hesitation was, if students are here collecting hours, I don't know, I wanted them to have what they needed to learn about art therapy. So I was wanting to point out the aspects that are common to traditional art therapy and the work that was here. I just kind of right before everybody came in was trying to organize my thoughts about that, kind of a similar question. And I think that one key is being able to facilitate people from different groups kind of coming together. Like when we counted up how many people really were part of this project, that was the art therapist being able to either know a resource, be able to find out because of our connections at Wayne State maybe, to taking our group skills, introducing people to each other, things of that nature. I love Kathy Moon's definition of relational aesthetics. And I think there is an art to helping people come together and learn how to interact. Not that I'm an expert.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also I believe it also has a lot to do with simply just kind of going back to the very beginning and just putting yourself in their shoes and just being open-minded and just having empathy for that person, of realizing, hey, you know what, okay, I want to help this person, I want to give them the right art project or assessment, but I think the main thing is meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
And I think that's more important, because us as art therapists, we're trained to help people, but at the same time, we also have to sit and just listen. And then once we listen and we're like, I felt that way too, I felt that way, maybe I can somehow create something outside, thinking outside the box, thinking outside of the norm of just stringent, we have to do this, the assessments and everything else. I think it's just thinking outside the box and having empathy for one another. I think that's a start.
That was one thing where I was on a learning curve there, because I thought, well, they'll come back next week. They had such a great time. And then some would come back, but different kids would come back. So I thought, oh, well, here are all these projects that people started and they're just there. But again, that was just learning, well, this is how it is here, meeting the realm of need as it is. And another line in the Levine's book says either community building is self-building or vice versa, because when you do something for somebody else, you also learn what it is about yourself that was able to do that. So there is this kind of reciprocity in that. Wayne?
I was wondering, you had alluded to cutting funding. I was wondering about sustainability. And I see all the quality types of qualitative benefits, and the real world revolves around money and sustainability. And I'm wondering if you have evidence-based or research-based quantitative kinds of data, or you're thinking about that if you don't, to back that up. Grant writing, those types of things.
It's hard to
nuts and bolts types of things that an operation, really needs to continue.
Well, this is a place that's run by grants. It's a community center. And even our state representative herself, I know, has put money into her own personal money. The art therapy was, sweat equity. I mean, we had the opportunity to have the little internship or service learning experience. So that's what we got out of it. Our students got to do that. And so there's no reason why we can't continue to do that. Janine's going to be back in the fall, kind of sitting in with their tutoring program and offering whatever is needed. And then, as I said, we're kind of expanding to the homeless shelters. And then there's this whole veterans thing. Once that gets off the ground, that students can go there. As far as, I would love for someone to be, to get some money, of course, as for students, and they're going to graduate and they need jobs. So any mini grant for, a summer, $2,000 here and there is what these people got paid. That we can hope for, but I don't know. That's why I'm not thinking of it as a traditional art therapy job, because some of the staff is paid, like the development officer is paid, and they have paid office staff. So I presumably an art therapist, might be able to be paid like that too. But we're East Siders, and so I think it's convenient to to go there, to be part of it, and we've kind of made a commitment to being there, at least, in the short run and with students, but that's a very good
Well, I was
question.
just wondering if you have, I hate to say it, but numbers to